although Captain Sami Mohammed Al-Ghil is a military advisor to the Minister of Defense in Saudi Arabia and has spent 23 years in positions of increasing responsibility within the Royal Saudi Naval Forces, encompassing areas of operations, electronic warfare, defense and planning and management. He has a Master of Science in Information Systems from the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey and a Master of Arts degree in National Security and Strategic Studies from the Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island. So, gentlemen, thank you all for being here today. And this is an opportunity for us to have a conversation involving everybody here in the room. So this is not just for you all to be observers, but I want you to be participants. The first thought I had, though, was based on the last presentation, and I guess it's only a comment, and I don't expect anybody to have the answer. But when we look at some of these disaffected people that join these types of organizations, we've all talked about piracy, and how with piracy the problem is not at sea, the problem is ashore. If you eliminate the reasons for the Somali men to go out in a boat and hijack ships in a terribly dangerous situation and hold people hostage, if you give them a reason not to do that, then we wouldn't have these coalitions out there looking for pirates. I wonder, when we see the Islamic State recruiting on social media, why a young person from anywhere would be attracted to something like that when they see that the Islamic State is beheading people publicly. It just, I don't have an answer for it. I don't think anybody has an answer for it, but it's, to me, a very frustrating situation, because I don't even know how you get to the root of that problem, of what attracts someone to be a part of that. The title of our panel discussion today is Identifying Emerging Threats and What Security Agencies Must Do to Adapt. So perhaps the whole concept of adaptation, I think when we met here for this conference a year ago, we didn't have an Islamic State, at least that was something we were publicly aware of and concerned about. So the question is, when you, how do you develop a force, whether it's a Coast Guard type force or a naval force or a coalition force, how do you make it so that it is able to deal directly with existing threats, but keep it flexible enough to be able to deal with emerging threats? And we'll start with you, Admiral. We'll move down the line.
Thank you very much. As I already well deliberated in my talk, that the emerging threats, as long as the Maritime Security Agency or the Coast Guard is concerned, are piracy, gun running, narco, and these are common to all of us in this region. And the basics, having hardware in terms of aircrafts, ships or assets, is common to all of the Coast Guards and Maritime Security Agencies. In my personal opinion, in order to make it more effective to counter these all threats, as I deliberated in my talk, we need a unilateral, bilateral and multilateral approach to counter these threats. Because these threats are so much magnificent in their respective domain that any Coast Guard alone will not be able to deal them respectively. So some of the aspects like policing is in the own waters, so we can have a unilateral approach. Then where you have a shared spaces, where two countries, once I pursue a bad elements, they go into either the Indian waters, on the Iranian waters, or onto the Omani waters, because they know that because of certain rules, he will not be able to follow me in those waters. So there we need to have a bilateral approach to counter this threat. But the solution as a community of nations, because maritime peace is important to all of us, and it is in the prosperity of all nations that we should have a maritime order, and that is through the multilateral approach. And the multilateral approach will be the only approach in longer terms to have a better security for any organization to combat the threats. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As from the previous lectures and yesterday lectures, we have identified or put our hands on many threats expected. One more, which has not been addressed, which I think going to require engagement of naval and police or maritime organizations, is pollution threat. We have in this region, Iran started its nuclear plants operation north of the Gulf, close to the coast. So any earthquake, disaster, malfunction, human errors, this might cause a new type of pollution this region has not been experienced before. So something has to be addressed in that area. But just confirming what my friend just said, I mean, this region is like any other region in the world, has its problems, and every region has problems. And some of these problems are beyond the capacity of a national, individual national capacity of any individual nation, country. The difference between this region or some regions and others are they are more prepared, for example, in Europe, and more cooperative, and have long time ago have established sustainable way of handling these problems, multinational regional problems. In this region, we are trying to develop a way and sustainable system. The critical point here in this region that we have one country have different approach to problems, have different way of looking at the problems. I have to say this, Iran, for example, has completely different way of addressing the problems, and the way it wants to handle these problems. Supported, and its policy is supported by Russia, for example, which is UN Security Council member. And this will affect getting the result expected, or the result we want to. Hoping one day, crossing fingers and hoping one day, that Iran attitude and Iran foreign policy is changed. And this is very, very important if you want to get the result you expect, or the result you hope for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think, continuing with the colleagues, what you said, and especially when the Admiral said that must be bilateral and multilateral coordination. I believe that, let me say in more concentrating that must be tactical training, operational training, and strategic training in the naval. If I implement that, I can, in the Navy, if I implement that, I can say that tactically they have to train together in the straits one by one, and they have operationally trained in specific area on the part of the Middle East, let me say, Red Sea, Mediterranean Sea, and even it must be collectively strategic maneuvers for all the area, maybe together. Beside that it must be a very clear and let me say strategy and platform for the agreement of the coalition and the Arabian countries, how they will do that in training, and at the same time to be related to the political concern of the countries. Don't tell me that as I said before, that this country has some specific interests, and the other country has some specific interests, and they are opposite to each other, and we train together. So tactically, as I told you, and strategically, it must be combined together. I believe also the sea must be full of forces from time to time for maneuvers. These maneuvers not only for training, but to be ready for any action, and even as deterrence for the Islamic groups which you would like to move here and there in the very near future.
My colleagues here at the discussion panel started talking about the cause and how to solve or how to mitigate these groups and terrorist groups. We leave this to the political and economical solutions by the politicians. And we are here as a military, we need to face this challenge. And how do we face this challenge exactly? In my opinion, we all agreed that the cooperation need to be increased. And we have a common base now on this. Everybody agrees that we have to cooperate more and more. Achieving that is the next step. We should go to the next step in how to achieve this. It's easy to say we need to cooperate, but how to cooperate? How to implement this idea of increasing cooperation by bilateral or multilateral cooperation with within the GCCs or within the countries in the region. We need to address that. We need to know exactly how we're going to do the cooperation. And I guess we have to go through steps in our navies first. We have to depend on the quality of the people. We have to train the people. This is new threats emerging now. We've been trained in the 20 years ago on irregular warfare navies to fight a regular warfare. Now we have a asymmetric warfare. How to deal with these groups? What is the laws? We need to train our soldiers and officers on board ships how to deal with these situations when they catch a smuggler or a pirate, or how to deal with them. That wasn't part of our job back 15 years ago or 20 years ago. So we need to train these new recruits and new officers on these things. And I guess we have to promote lots of things before we go into cooperation with each other. We have to build our civil-military relations among the agencies or the interagency relation within our countries first, and then go beyond to deal with the different countries in cooperation. I don't want to take more time from my colleagues, but I will add more over later on. Thank you.
Well, you mentioned a couple of interesting things there about cooperation within our own countries. When you talk about interoperability and working with allies and training together, and that's all very good, but a lot of times within our own country, the Navy, the Coast Guard, the other military services, perhaps the Department of Interior or Border Protect, sometimes those are the biggest obstacles we have to overcome. So let's just address that question real quick, and then we're going to take some questions from our colleagues here. But how do you achieve interoperability? Is it through education? Is it through exercises? Is it through liaison officers? What's the best way to build that interoperability, and why is that so important?
Thank you very much. Pakistan has learned it the hard way that we have recently created an organization by the name of Joint Maritime Information and Coordination Center. About 3-4 years back, as you are very rightly said, that everybody was really isolated into his own domain. It was the port infrastructure, it was the Pakistan Navy, PMSA, Customs, and Coast Guard, and many agencies. Since about 3-4 years ago, we have created this organization under the ambit of Pakistan Navy through the Act of Parliament, and we call it JMICC. And everybody has a rep sitting in that JMICC. And through that JMICC, now we have a better recognized maritime picture. and the job is assigned to a respective agency after the necessary coordination with everybody. So my advice would be such an organization is mandatory in order to coordinate, because every country would have about 10 to 15 certain organization which is coordinating the affairs of the maritime domain. But if they all start coordinating, then you will have the problem. So you have to have some coordinating agencies, something like that. It will improve the recognized maritime picture out at sea for everybody.
We have a practice here in the Gulf launched and activated by NAVCENT in Bahrain, the Multinational Maritime Operation Command. And this effort, which I have participated in some occasions, I see it's a cycle going on with no end goal. United States is leading this a group of multinational forces. Pakistan is member in this force, and many other nations here are participating into it. But I was hoping that one day the end goal of this is that the region here can take the command of this operation, and the other non-regional countries are to support under this command. Now, why can't we do this, at least the time being now? GCC, at this moment, we are not under one joint maritime command, GCC. So what we need is doing this, and the news coming up that this is going to be launched, which we hope and pray for. Number two, the level of technology for command and control for multinational forces in the GCC countries is, I think, is still below the level required to give them advantage to take command and control role over other multinational units. But the training is there, working together, the liaison is there, frequent meeting between commands is there, which, I mean, these are positive points, but there are 2 points, especially in the technology of command and control, need to be solved. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's very simple. I believe that must be joint and combined training, mutual training, and let me say combined command. It doesn't mean centralized, but combined command. At the same time, I believe that technology in coalitions or all training forces together, not only on the type of training, but type of technology. Because you have to understand each other during the real operation, and before that, during the real training. Thank you.
In my opinion, we have to concentrate more on ISR capability for the countries within the region. We all, in our navies, we have this before. We were platform-centric navies. We concentrate our budgets and efforts to have platforms. We didn't give the ISR capability much importance or its importance. We need to look at this again. We need to have a very good ISR capability within the area, and we have to share the information from these assets. The second thing, we have to build our navies to be an information-oriented navies. Information now is a key, very key issue to the problem. In order to face a threat or to deal with a threat, you need to have information. You need to know, for example, from the lecture this morning, how did they interdict the vessel and took off the 400 kilograms of marijuana? That's what you need. You need the information. So if you build your Navy as an information-oriented Navy with a good ISR capability, then your job to face these threats will be much easier. Plus exchanging. But we have to build these capabilities within our navies first, and then go to the second level of sharing this together and having the interoperability between the systems and the communication means in order. But we have to have something to share first, and then we go to the second step, which is the sharing.
I know in the United States, for example, the Navy is not privy to law enforcement information, and law enforcement is not privy to classified military information. So even though the information may be there, they're prohibited from sharing. That makes it difficult from an operational perspective and also technology-wise, because you have to build in these firewalls and perhaps have some kind of trusted agent in the middle that's deciding what information can be parsed out. Also, the very good points about the training, and I think so many of our speakers in the past 2 days have had so much education and training, and much of that with partner nations, with friendly nations. A number of you have been to Monterey and Newport. A number of you have been to Pakistan and Egypt and to the UK to go to high-level training. But that builds trust. It builds these friendships, and you learn to trust one another. And that's really the basis of being able to work together, is trust. What I'd like to do is open the floor to a question that we have two already in the front row, that you may address to either one person or the whole panel. So you have that choice. And we'll start here, sir, and then here. We'll get two here, and then we'll take the next one.
Thank you very much. I'd like just to add regarding the maritime security. The initiative of His Majesty King Hamad through the GCC countries to establish a maritime security center in Bahrain, joint with all the GCCs. This is a step actually into the future of the maritime security. And we are joining with our colleagues from the Gulf states to develop this center and to have more information regarding the security of maritime in terms of smuggling or piracy. And the center is start operating in Bahrain. The defense ministers of the GCC last year have put the foundation of the foundation stone of the new center, which is going to be built, and the cost of that is about 3 million dinar. This will enhance the capabilities of the GCC countries and to make the lanes of communication of sea lines clear, and will develop the information which has to be passed through the centers of the naval forces and the Gulf states. And we are very pleased to reach a good level of understanding between each other. And we are affiliated also, the center is affiliated in many of the international organizations like the MIO or the other AIS and many, and has a affiliation with the, I think, Maritime Center in Singapore and in Italy. So we also fed by other information from both sides. Most of the GCC country have their representatives, like the United Arab Emirates and Kuwait, already established in Bahrain. So this will add a new information center and exchange for the GCC navies. Thank you.
And is that, would you want anybody here to respond to that, or is this just a comment that you wanted to share with all of us?
Wanted to add more to
Yeah.
my friends.
Thank you. Admiral?
It looked to me like we address the problem and we try to find a solution. But honestly, it looked like we ask the military people, which don't have all the capability to do the thing. Like you said, if we take as example the Paraxi, the solution, not a military solution. And everyone knows it. But the problem is we try to find, we ask the military people to do how much money we spend to fight against Paraxi. And this money, if we guide it, if we just put it in the suitable situation, and we can fix the problem. Again, when we speak about ISIS, honestly, everyone knows that's why they spread in Iraq. In reality, it's began in 2003, and some people they feel unfair, the Sunni and the Shia, and it look like you ask the military people to fix a problem beyond their capability. We're not facing the source of the problem, and we try to find a military solution. I'm not sure if that's the right description for our situation or not. Thank you.
But as military and naval men and women, we're called upon to try to solve the problem militarily. And you're right, it transcends, it's not a hardware problem, it's not an operational problem, it's a humanity problem. Any more comments or questions from?
Addressing a subject like this on this level, of course it's important that we know that we all agree and united together against this threat, which is very good. Talking about unilateral, bilateral, or multilateral approach to the problem, it's another approach which is already exists for other threats in the area, and it is working through the CMF organization to some extent. Bringing other threats, as our colleagues here talk, adding pollution, training, or different kind of organization that could as well have some added value to the solution. I would say we still, all of us, continue to agree to an approach where we can do something. In the end, we have not yet a location where we can start something like this all together. So I would suggest that anybody goes back is to see who could offer a host place where we can get together and then address this thoroughly together, instead of everybody only worrying about the threat and then going home and there is no action, like what's happening now. So I think location is very important. Host nation is another important issue, and the contribution by burden sharing, it's another issue that we have to cover. And I think if we can address this, then the organization can be easily reassembled and then do the task. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments? So I'm going to go ahead and yes, sir.
Just in continuous
Yes, sir.
in continuous of what we are saying here, I mean, there are points coming up, but we hopefully end of this session or the next one, we can conclude all together. But if we can frame these points under certain categories to make it easier for people involved in decision making here or whatever. the command and control, which I mentioned before, and then technology supporting the command and control is a vital important, which the command control, I mean, basically includes information gathering and information sharing and things like this, which also leads to reconnaissance, surveillance capabilities in the areas for the future threats, expansion of terrorism or pollution or illegal trafficking and stuff like this. Now, we've been talking about terrorism for a long time. We've been talking about illegal trafficking, but the future is going to bring to us a new forms of terrorism, new forms of illegal trafficking, also at larger scale than what we are expecting this. Now, is what we are doing now enough for the change of tourism scale or forms? Is our infrastructure capacity enough to handle the future problems? Are we really realistic in estimating the future threats? This is the question that might lead to what do we need for the future, whether hardware, personnel, softwares, and so on.
Just to add to what Sheikh Khalifa said about having the location now and it started, which is a very big step for us. What we need now, in my opinion, is to have the strategy, how to do the information sharing and to have the doctrines and to start talking about the interoperability and about the systems that we have and how we gonna do this, how we gonna achieve it. Since we have the location, which is very big step for us. Having the Task Force 81, which is the GCC navies, is another second step on its way to accomplish. These two steps are very huge steps, but we have still lots of things to do in order to really have the cooperation that we need. We need to work harder. It's just the beginning in a 1,000 mile. This is the first mile. We have the location, we have the task force, but now we have to talk about the interoperability. These are very big issues. These takes time, years, to build the interfaces between the systems, to share the same tactical picture, to exchange the information with all the communication means that we have, with the different command and control systems that we have. These are big challenges for us. We need to address them from now. We need to have solutions, and this will take us to counter these threats. It will make our life as combatants on ships and much easier. If we have the information, it will be much easier for us to counter these threats.
And you're talking about interoperability of systems, being able to
talk to each other, to exchange
country to country.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, we have enough problems with our own navies.
We already have these
systems work
problems with
together.
our systems between the Coast Guard and the Navy and the Customs already. Adding to this, the second level of interoperability between the different countries and different agencies is another big issue. So this is a challenge, and we need to work on it. We have the guidance. It's all clear for us. They're going to meet, I guess, today, our kings and sheikhs. They are all agreed to this. We have to cooperate more. And now the ball is in our field, how to translate into action, translate this political willingness into action. How do we do this? How do we achieve what we need exactly as a GCC countries in order to promote maritime security in the area?
So we'll do one more question, and we'll work from the end down this way. As we've been going along, I've been writing lots of different questions, and I keep changing the questions as we answer them. But what I've been thinking about when we're talking about interoperability, the ability to share information tactically at sea, and how we might be able to do that with offboard systems. So what do you see as the future of offboard systems? And by that I'm referring to unmanned vehicles primarily. And as an extension to that question, how can we, with our individual systems, be able to share it, share the information, to have a common tactical picture, even though the systems are unique and special to our Navy or to our platform? So it's sort of, what's your crystal ball of unmanned systems?
I guess technology solutions are available. It's already there, and it has been made before. We have a coalition in Task Code 51, and we have more than 20 navies talking to each other through one system. The Centrex, for example, we exchange information through this system. We could enhance such system, and there is technological solutions. It's there, but we need to sit together and have a description of our systems, and we could have the solution. I guess it's not a problem of technology. Technology can solve the problem. Once we address it, it can be solved. It's not a big deal.
For the information, for mutual information, basically, if I talk about that, not the unmanned vehicles, please. Starting even from tactical level, that there is information centers inside the brigade, for example, and coming after that, bigger information center, and there is a joint information centers. I believe that joint information centers must be in the area, working, trying together with mutual information, okay, and in the same time to try to work in the same way of changing information. If we're talking about technology, for sure, it cannot be working without technology, whatever you have. Unmanned vehicles, communication technology, also even when we are whatever inside the sea or in the terrain, so you will find all kinds of technology to help you in that. But basically what I would like to concentrate in, that we have to think about in all levels, coming up even to international level in a specific area of interest, that you have a joint information center, training together and then working together.
If we only talk about terrorism and counter the terrorism action, now we're talking about people use and employ civilian assets in civilian clothes and carry out violence action against some targets, national targets or civilian targets. Now, we've been talking yesterday about legalization of our joint operation. We are talking also, I'm trying to link things together, coming to the point of information and the importance of information and how we should handle the information. Now, the forces being under pressure, media pressure or legal pressure, when hitting non-tourist groups by mistakes. We had these accidents or these incidents happened in Pakistan many times and brought tension between two important nations working together. So the information we need is we need to collect the right information. So we got to have the technology to support us to gain the right information in the right time. Number two is to record this information that you might need after the incident or the event to present for legal disputes. You also need this information in further longer time after the incident for developing new tactics and methods and training. So the information is not only reporting something at sea today. It's analyzing this, identifying the movement, explaining it, and passing it to the levels required to share it with you, or have the legitimacy to share it with you, and also feedback. We're talking about something happens in Kuwait, somebody in Pakistan maybe, part of our coalition or operation also need to know this. So this has to be to be recorded. Tourists, we don't know where do they strike. We don't know how they commence their tactics, but we know they are advanced. They are getting more advanced tactics. They are implementing, using new technology, developing their own technology in selecting their targets and approaching their targets and destroying their targets. So the information is not only incident lifetime information, it's the recorded information and the analyzed information and the shared information. Thank you.
Thank you. And my short answer to this would be, I agree with the general from Egypt that information, whether coming from the manned vehicle or the unmanned vehicle, as long as it is analyzed and timely actionable and through a joint information center is analyzed, then it will be good. So irrespective it is coming from manned or unmanned vehicle, but it has to have some joint information analysis centers where this is acted upon in a timely fashion. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions or comments from our colleagues here? And would any of you care to make any final comments? Well, I would like to thank our panelists for being so frank and open, and I think we were dealing with some high-level issues here. We weren't getting down into the issues of how much horsepower we need, or do we need 2 interceptors or 1 interceptor, but I think we were dealing with some high-level issues that do affect all of us, particularly since I think the consensus is that we are going to be finding ourselves working together one way or another, that we all agree that one nation can't do it alone, and our future is going to be some kind of international partnerships to deal with these maritime threats. So I would like to thank our panelists. So let's give them a quick round of applause here. Thank you very much.